evening. Thanks a lot for staying with us here at CNN News 18. I'm Ridhima Bhatnagar. You're watching Nation at 5. Lots to cover over the next 60 minutes. The big story that we're beginning this evening with is what's happening as far as ties between India and Canada are concerned. It looks like there is no action that is being taken by the Trudeau administration as far as separatist activities are concerned. Once again, you have Diwali festivities that in fact were hindered and interrupted by separatist elements. We're also now understanding that separatist elements, in fact, at this same event that was interrupted during the festival of Diwali, there was pelting of stones and hurling of abuses at the Indian community. Now, what is even more disappointing and shocking is that the local police that was available at the spot nearby actually did not act. So that is raising a lot of questions as to how far can the Trudeau administration continue to be silent. As we pointed out, not really the first time that we're seeing activities by separatist elements like these create a lot of disruptions in Canada, and specifically as far as the festival of Diwali is concerned, where the Hindu community now feels targeted, abuses being hurled at them, stones being pelted, and the local police just standing as mute spectators. But that's not all. We're now getting some other breaking developments also now coming in terms of another episode that in fact has been reported, and this time around once again in Canada you had an event of the Indian High Commission that was also interrupted by elements from Sikhs of Justice. We'll try and get more details as far as this event is concerned, but two events already now being reported in Canada that has happened on Canadian soil, and that has led to absolutely no action by the local police or the local authorities. Once again, the silence and the inaction of the Trudeau administration being questioned. Remember, all of this comes at a time when relations between both the countries have only deteriorated after very serious allegations were made by Canada that India had something to do with the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And ever since those allegations were made, there was no real evidence that was put forth by Canada to prove those allegations. Before we bring in our colleague, let's really break down what do we know so far about these two episodes that have happened in Canada, specifically the one that has happened with the Indian High Commission. So you have the Indian Consulate, I beg your pardon, that is in fact being targeted. This was targeted by the Sikhs for Justice in Canada. This is what top government sources are telling us here at CNN News 18. We're also understanding this was an event that was organized by the Khalsa Diwan Society. Here we're understanding a Sikh couple in fact was also targeted only because they saw the Indian flag being disrespected and they actually raised their voices. We are now understanding that the Sikhs for Justice men targeted a Sikh family during this event, as we were pointing out. We're also now understanding the Sikh family was further harassed and abused by these K members as well. So two episodes that are being reported. In the first episode that happened in Brampton, many eyewitnesses coming forward and saying that local police was present there, but they failed to act. No reaction coming in from the Trudeau administration. And in this episode of the Indian Consulate, we're also now understanding that this Indian family, which in fact was targeted, they stood up to the K-goons for disrespecting the Indian flag. The sequence of events that we've been able to piece together tells us that in fact this Indian family saw the Indian flag on the floor. They tried to pick it up, and that's when they in fact were attacked by these K-goons. Now, the other big question is what is going to be the response of India. As we pointed out a short while ago, this comes at a time when relations between both the countries have already been deteriorating post the allegations made as far as the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar was concerned. So again, what top government sources are telling us here at CNN News 18, that India in fact will be drawing the red line. Khalistanis involved in attacks against India. Remember, time and again, this is something that has been raised by India, that there is a sense of free haven that is being given to these elements in Canada, and there is nothing that is happening by the Trudeau administration. Why is the Trudeau administration turning a blind eye? Is it just for convenience of vote bank politics, or is there a lot more? What sources are also now telling us is that the Canadian police continues to be a mute spectator to these attacks. Multiple eyewitnesses also confirming exactly this, and this is being reiterated in the disappointment of the Indian community at large as well, that despite local authorities being present, they're failing to act or take any action. What government sources also now telling us that the Canadian government in fact is encouraging attacks against India. As we pointed out, ever since these first allegations were made by the Canadian authorities that India had something to do with the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, time and again India has asked for credible proof and evidence, but Canada in fact has failed to do so. And now we continue to see these separatist elements continuing to having a free run, with the local police also being a mute spectator and no reaction coming in from the Trudeau administration either. Before we bring in our colleagues and guests to try and understand what awaits the relations of India and Canada in days and weeks to come, let's first take a look at some reactions coming in.
ਮੈਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹਰਕਤਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲ ਜੂਗਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁੰਡਾ ਦਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਗੁਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਪੰਨੂ ਦਾ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਫॉर ਜਸਟਿਸ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਦੇਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਸਿੱਖ ਕੌਮ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਕੌਮ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਢੰਡੋਰਾ ਪਿੱਟਦੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ। ਕੱਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਕਰਤੂਤ ਕਰੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਉਹਦੀ ਡੀਟੇਲ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋਗੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੇਟੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਨੂੰਹ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ, ਇੱਕ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੋਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਆਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ।
Let's also now bring in our colleague Abhishek. We also have our guest and activist Ramneet Singh Mann also joining us. Before we bring in our guest, Abhishek, we want to understand from you as far as the sequence of events are concerned. Two episodes that have been reported. One is a Diwali event that was interrupted in Brampton, and the other is what happened with the event of the Indian Consulate. Just help us understand specifically as far as the episode with the Indian Consulate was concerned. Any reaction coming in from the Canadian authorities so far?
Well, so far there is not any reaction or any issue that the authorities from the Canadian side has come up and talked about this issue. But we know that Indian High Commissioner's event, which was organized by Khalsa Diwan Society in Canada to issue life certificate to community members getting pension from India, that was disrupted by Sikh for Justice party's members. And this is not the first time that SFJ members have tried to disrupt any community event for the Indians or the Hindu community. But in the past few days, there are multiple threats and intimidation also that has come from Sikh for Justice only. Also, Pannu, who has been the Secretary General of the Sikh for Justice organization, which is banned organization, had threatened any Sikh or any Indian to travel, not to travel from 19th November onwards in Air India flights. And that had kind of reminiscence of a threat that these flights might be endangered, that there can be some sort of accident that could take place in such such flights. So these issues, and then the issue of Diwali celebration that was also disrupted by these SFJ goons, and the latest that the pension distribution event was also disrupted by SFJ. They are increasingly becoming a problem for Indian communities in Canada.
Yeah, Abhishek, we'll just